So now I take my trusty joint tool and I'm just going to press mortar in. So this is not the neatness counts portion of the demo. This is all about just filling the hole. So what I'm going after is about a 1/4 inch's worth of mortar, which means a lot will be falling. You can hear it hitting the floor now. So I end up using actually both sides of the tool, the 1/2 inch as well as the 3/8, and I found that that happens for a couple reasons. One, the inconsistency in the brick size, which is why I wanted this, so that you had different sizing. And then the spacing. Spacing wasn't always what I would call ideal. So I'm going to stop this here until I can come back and clean this up. Is I'm going to take either end of this tool and kind of scrape. So if you see all this here, I'm going to kind of scrape it so that it's not so on the brick, because the whole idea is to have the profile of the brick coming through. I know this might seem counterintuitive, but trust me on this. So I'm going to do that to the entire brick. Back in a few. Then I have scraped edges around each of the bricks, so you can see, actually, where am I in focus? You can see that this was dragged all across the tops of these bricks. So now I'm going to take this brush, old broom with some semi-stiff, and I'm just going to, you'll see immediately what happens. It's at about a 45-degree angle, and there's tons of, pieces of mortar on the ground that I can pick up, and if I need to fill in a spot, which I just saw one over here, just fill it in. So I'm going to do the rest of the wall. What I would call my rough brush. Then I come back in and I'm doing this all over again. Only this time I'm coming in at a much more granular level. And when I say granular, I've got my tool again. I've got an old copper brush, and I've got I think this was from wallpapering. But what you'll see is this allows me to clean up anything that I don't like edgewise, where I think there's too much mortar. And then because this is still wet, wet enough, it allows me to clean up the grout so that I get a smooth enough finish, and I still get the character of the bricks. Alright, so I'll be doing more of this times about 50 more bricks. So I will shut this off here. Come back. And it's done-ish. But you can see how nicely the brush pulls off the grout, and because these are a distressed brick to begin with, that's exactly what I want. I want the distressed look of the brick to show through. So to me, this is more of the artsy side of doing this, where you're trying to go after a certain look. And another reason why you can't go too fast, because the mortar will just dry too quick on you. So I only try to do 2 lines worth of bricks at a time, because the mortar will dry. And I'm guessing I'm off camera right now. So I will turn off the camera when I'm off. I'll walk the line and you can see what the scraping did. So you can see that my intent was to reveal as much of the brick as possible so that it looks like it's just sitting in the mortar. So when you think about, you know, how much mortar there is versus how much brick, there's not a lot of mortar on the wall here. It's very thin. In fact, when you look at the amount of what I'll call waste for that entire bag, giant bag, I mean, not a lot of waste. But the technique that I'm using, that I'll say I developed, that's a boo-boo. I'd want to fix that. And this is the beauty of mortar. While it's still wet, you can do that. So if you don't catch it now, once it dries, and I have lots of dust on other layers because I'm going, you know, you'd think you'd go from top to bottom. I went from bottom up, just like when I laid the bricks. And I did that because I wanted to learn how to do this and experiment down below where maybe it's not so catchy at eye level versus up here. Now you're getting to eye level, and if you don't have your technique down, it will be noticeable. So but you can constantly second guess yourself with little areas of whatever, and I think it came out pretty good. So the wall is about half done, and this has consumed half a bag of mortar, and I would say from start to finish, this 2 rows of mortar takes about an hour, and that means mixing the mortar, putting it in the bag, applying it. While it's drying for a little bit, I wash the bag out and wash the bucket out, put it outside, let it dry, come back in, trowel this, Then first sweeping with the broom, and then the fine tooth edging, or what I would call more of the artsy stuff, the edging and pulling the character out with the copper brush. So that's what it's looking like, getting there. This is what the wall looks like as of now. The majority is done. I think I've got 1, 2, 3 rows and then the top, so technically 4 rows. And it's come out quite well. I like the character of what I tried to do with having the as much of the brick as possible exposed, so it looks like it's raised, as opposed to a flush mount with the mortar. I did run into issues with my mortar bags. I can't tell you how many. This is like the largest tip. My first 80 pounds of mortar went smooth. Probably 70% of the wall was done that way. And then all of a sudden, it stopped coming out of the bag. So I bought my second bag of mortar. This is the left side. So what I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to tape, and then when I mortar, I'll have the wet mortar, and then I'll pull the tape away and then do the final touch-up so that as little as possible gets on the wall. See how that works out. But as I was saying, the mortar just stopped coming out of the bag. I don't care how thin I mixed it, how thick I mixed it. And it wasn't like I knew what I was doing or didn't know what I was doing, because I'd done 70% of the wall with the mortar bag, and it was coming out like peanut butter. And then all of a sudden on the next mortar bag, you can see like a slight difference between the mortar. The mortar just wouldn't come out, or when I made it, more. If I made it any wetter, it was just water and a mess. So I've resorted to using different tools, tuck pointing with different tools. But I'm close enough to being done that I'm not going to worry about it. So once I'll finish this weekend, once I'm done with the top and the edges and the last 3 rows, I will then wash the bricks and scrub them a little bit to get all the dust off. And then it's time to rip up the carpet and do the floor. More to come.